Hello, good morning. Great to see folks. All right, let's get right to it. We've got a lot of questions this morning in all the Facebook groups, so need to get to those. For those of you who have questions that you didn't put in the Facebook group that you were waiting for on the live, pop those right into the chat. Thank you so much. Okay, first question. Our private label listing has been sabotaged in a very short period of time. Certain negative reviews received an avalanche of helpful clicks. This led to all of the reviews in our top review section is showing only those negative reviews. This caused our sales to plummet. My question is, what are the exact steps I need to take to report those reviews that were manipulated by helpful clicks? Surely I'm not the first to encounter this, and others have successfully fixed the situation like the one that I'm in. So the team that handles this is community, and when you file a case to community, there's no direct way to contact them at the moment. The enforcement is handled through seller performance, and then the cases are handled through seller support. So right now there's no direct way to contact community. There's still a relatively small team, and they are responsible for a lot of fraud that they really were never set up to handle. So they're kind of in over their heads in a lot of ways. Mike said, this happened to me too. Feel free to tell us about your experience too, Mike. The appropriate way to handle this is to file a case per individual review, not one case for all of the reviews, but one case per individual review. The reason being is that the person who ends up getting assigned this internally, it's a lot of work to go in and adjust those and to back it up. If you put everything into one case, it's too much work for one person to handle within the time period that they have allotted to handle cases. So you have to make sure that you make it really bite-sized for them. Otherwise, they just won't handle it. They'll just ignore it. And this is, it's not fair to you necessarily. They should be able to split things out. The problem is if they're able to split things out, then people who cheat would split it out even more. And so it's not permitted to do that. And then, of course, if a manager were in there to approve it, then you'd have other issues. So it's just not a thing. You have to submit the cases individually per review that's affected. Okay. The other thing is that it depends on who you get in community. Sometimes they don't know how to do it, or they don't know what to do. Some of them don't know when to see when the helpful clicks were done. Unfortunately, the team that you're dealing with is, again, a bit over their heads with all of this. And so you may need to submit multiple cases to try to get it handled. But the most important thing that I can give you in terms of advice to handle this is going to be submitting one case per review. So you want to make sure that one case at a time so that the team can actually handle it. Otherwise, it's just going to be way too overwhelming for them. Sometimes people will even ask you to submit a case per issue, which is every single helpful click, which is crazy. Don't do that. Just do one review. Okay. Then if for whatever reason you can't get a response, so from community, they're so backed up that I wouldn't expect action or movement for about 2 weeks, which is crazy because it affects your sales so badly. It's not fair. But that's how long they've been backed up. I would therefore, after 3 days, send an escalation to an executive at Amazon. The simplest one to write, of course, is Jeff at, and then just explain each situation and then list out the cases that you've been working on. Okay. All right. Next question. On a previous Hangout, you recommended applying for Trademark in Mexico and mentioned you can assist. Can you tell us more about the service offered and the process for getting a trademark through Mexico? Yeah. So basically, we work with a lawyer for you, so you don't have to worry about that. You do need to provide the lawyer the information, but we handle the initial discussions to try to streamline the process. And the basic fee is $1,000, and that covers the filing fee, so the actual filing fee with the Mexican authorities, and it covers the time for the lawyer to actually do the research. So, for example, there's one really critical thing that a lot of people don't know about trademarks, which is that you can't have a descriptive trademark, and by that I mean it can't be Rachel's Apparel. So if I'm making clothes, Rachel's Apparel is right out. That's not a name that will work from a trademarking perspective. But if you had something like Rachel's Vavavoom sparkles or something like that, then that would be okay for apparel because it's not descriptive of what the product is. So going through, you have potential ideas, you have or no ideas, and we work that with you too. And then the lawyer handles the whole process of filing and then going back and forth with the Mexican authorities to make sure it goes through properly. The only thing is, if for whatever reason you're disputed, and that can happen, right? There's a stage for every trademark in any country where it's called published for opposition. And when it's published for opposition, that means that anyone who's currently following any of the published trademarks can submit their opposition to a new trademark. So, for example, if I were to submit, Rachel's Vavavoom Sparkles, if someone else had a brand name called Vavavoom Sparkles, they could contest my trademark and try to say that I couldn't do that, especially if they're also in apparel. Now, if they were in computer accessories, then they would have no standing to contest. So it's kind of like a two-pronged thing. The first thing is that you get someone to actually file it for you. And so that can be really helpful in filing in Mexico. And the second thing is you get advice from people who have gone through this multiple times before and have gone through the pain of having a contest with somebody else, and how can you avoid that, or how can you submit it in such a way that it goes through quickly and without contesting, because our trademark was actually contested, and it added about 4 months to the process, which was really obnoxious in the US. Let's see. Kathy said, can you comment on Cynthia Stein's blog regarding radio silence from Amazon and their lack of response? Are you experiencing this also? At the moment, no, we aren't. So I wasn't, it makes me really sad for clients on her end, because that's terrible. We have had a few clients where there haven't been any responses. So that has been a thing. But it's not been across the board at all. We've gotten a couple products reinstated and accounts reinstated just in the last month. So it's not something that we're experiencing across the board, but we have been experiencing that they're less kind than usual. When they've decided they're not talking to anymore, they appear to just be not talking to anymore. So it's really important to get that first response right when they're still talking to you. I know a lot of people really want to talk themselves because they don't want to pay for it. They don't want to deal with it. But my experience with Amazon is that once they decide that you're a bad actor, once they decide that you're stupid, those are the two things that will get you taken off as quickly as possible. If they think you're an idiot or if they think you're a bad actor. It's really hard to come back from that, like to convince them that you're actually capable of doing stuff. Once they decide. It's pretty frustrating, especially considering, I just did a podcast last week where I was talking about this and the fact that the people who are deciding this are often, people who came out of college and started working for Amazon, or they are people who have very little business experience and now they're in charge of the future of your business. It's pretty messed up, actually, but that's how Amazon set this up. Lee said, our storefront magically disappeared. Opened a case to find out why, and it's been 6 weeks. The only response we get is that they're working on it. What should my next step be? I thought of opening another case since this one is stalling. Did you go into brandservices.amazon.com to file the case, or did you file it with regular seller support? Because with anything to do with brand registry, you want to file it in brandservices.amazon.com, because the regular support can't figure it out and won't be able to help you effectively. So make sure you file to brand registry support, not to regular support. So you need to log into brandservices.amazon.com and then file a case there. It's a little bit weird how you have to file a case. It's not the same contact us process. It's like different links to get to the contact us. But then it will actually go to the correct team that can actually help you. Yeah, so if you went to regular seller support, you'll want to go into brandservices.amazon.com and file directly with brand registry. They've got it separated for some reason, so regular seller support doesn't really know what to do. So if your case went to a regular seller support rep who didn't know how to transfer the case or didn't know who to send it to, it could just be sitting there, unfortunately. And that's pretty unpleasant that it just disappeared like that. Yeah, you never know what's happening with Amazon sometimes. Okay, next question. How should we respond to the email, confirm your German tax registration status? Amazon sure doesn't explain much. Since I don't sell in Germany and I do not have a legal entity in Germany, I'm not sure if I need to do anything. So if you are selling less than $10,000 in Germany, you shouldn't need to file any taxes. Now, I am taking a look at what Amazon is trying to do because of Brexit. So Germany is by far the most obnoxious to work with in terms of tax enforcement. I actually used to work, that actually used to be part of my job, was to respond to German tax authorities, the Staatsanwaltschaft, in response to basically sellers avoiding tax in Germany. Whenever they would come across a situation where they thought that someone wasn't paying their taxes, they would file a request to Amazon that would get routed to my desk, and it would say, hey, did this seller sell stuff in the last 3 years, or whatever the specific request might be? And my job was to pull all their sales data and then provide it directly to the German tax authorities, who would then go after the seller for non-payment of taxes. That was a fun job. So the way that that Germany has approached this is basically any tax evaders are fair game, but for the most part, they don't really go after anybody below 10,000 euros. So if you're not selling in Germany at all, I'm not sure if you have to do anything at all. But it really depends on how Amazon is trying to like tick their boxes right now with the whole Brexit situation. Germany is by far the most interested in forcing Amazon to comply, after Britain, of course. But Great Britain was by far the most aggressive in the last few years because of tax evaders. That's why everyone is so strict now. I don't know if you've experienced that with the account closures in GB, but they were really strict if you didn't have all your tax papers in order, and shutting accounts down and so on. Kathy asks, doesn't Amazon handle international taxes for FBA? Yeah, they'll collect them, but you still need to file them. You still have to like work with the, you still have to take care of the actual filing with the authorities. So it depends on how your settings are too. I don't remember the exact date that changed. I will look into this and do an update on this, because I remember that they did something that changed recently about, especially the German site in particular. So for this one, I will follow up after the call with a bit more research on this. I know that if it's below 10,000 euros, you likely don't have any issues. So if you're not selling, it's not an issue. But I'm going to double check that and where to mark yourself exempt if that's the case. The thing is, right now, the way that European accounts work is if you sign up on one of them, you're signed up on all of them just by default. I don't know what they're going to do after Brexit. Nobody knows what they're going to do after Brexit. It's like the most exciting Jack in the Box. Who knows what's going to happen? No one knows. Okay, so I'll follow up with that afterwards. All right, so next question is, what is a good recommended approach for inserts and asking for reviews on those inserts? Would love some guidelines on what I cannot say and or offer in exchange for reviews. Can I add QR codes? Are there any restrictions in general? Also, what if you're a big impersonal corporation? So that's a great question. We do a lot of insert support for our clients who are basically just providing feedback on, this is a good idea, that's not a good idea, don't do that. And basically the kind of the going advice is to make sure that you don't offer any financial compensation on the same insert or the same side of the insert where you're asking for a review. Basically, if your insert says, here is 25% off as a loyal customer, and on the other side it says, did you like your product? Leave a review. Then that might be a bit much, right? If you're doing 5%, then it's probably just fine. Don't worry about it. But we have noticed that Amazon actually prohibits reviews being posted if someone has used any kind of promotion to buy the product, any kind of promotion, and they won't even post a review at all. No promotions. So that means coupons, that means promotional amounts, anything like that. No review. So Amazon's very picky about this. So that's what I would say is important, is don't have it in the same insert that you get some sort of discount, and please leave a review. Okay, there's no problem with asking for a review. The problem with reviews is asking for a review in coordination with some sort of discount offer or some sort of monetary offer, or some sort of freebie. That's also a monetary offer. And asking for a review only if they had a good experience. Those are the two things that'll get you on the review side, okay? So if you just ask for a review, say something like, we value the opinions of our customers, please go here to leave a review. That's completely neutral. There's no monetary offer associated with it. There's no, if you liked it, leave a review. Those are the things that'll get you into trouble, okay? And yes, you can add QR codes as long as the QR code isn't a diverting attempt. So you can't have a QR code that goes directly to your website and then your product is either cheaper or you've got better deals on your website. So if you have something that's like a QR code or some sort of discount code, it needs to work on Amazon and it needs to direct them to Amazon. You don't want to overtly convince them that your website is better than Amazon. Also, if you do have your website, you should have your website in a completely neutral way as well. So www.yourbusiness.com, but no other commentary on, go to our website, it's awesome. Don't do that. That's all diverted. Okay. All right. Next question. Is there a cheat sheet or a quick step-by-step on reading ad reports? Number 1, no impressions on an auto campaign. 2, what is an acceptable click-through rate? 3, what if you are below that click-through rate on certain keywords? Okay, so my philosophy on ad campaigns on Amazon is that they aren't all about return on investment. Now, there's plenty of things that are out there that are just fantastic for return on investment, great. That should be something that you focus on, but that's not really the target for me in any case. What I'm looking for is specific keyword search terms, and then I look at how many clicks they got or how many conversions they got to decide how valuable those keyword search terms are from the customer. So when I'm looking at the click-through rates, that's really like acceptable click-through rate isn't really a concern for me. For the dollars, you really actually want to be focused on the ACoS, not the click-through rate. Now, if it's a really low click-through rate, then you have a problem, right? And it's not about advertising. If you have a really low click-through rate, that means that your title or your picture, your primary image, is not attractive. So there's something wrong with it. Otherwise, people will be clicking more. So if you've got a really low click-through rate and compared to something else, and click-through rates are it depends, right? Look at it in comparison with your other products. So the click-through rates that I generally see for most clients are between 0.5% and about 3 to 4%, depends on the product. Look at your other campaigns to see how they're going. But click-through rates are generally not like super great, and that's fine. Because you only pay per click, right? So it's a lot more about how many of those converted from the click rather than how many clicked. Now, the question about no impressions on an auto campaign, then you have something wrong with your bids. So if you aren't getting any impressions, then that means that no one is seeing your ad at all. And so you aren't bidding high enough, or for whatever reason, Amazon isn't showing your product. So it could be that Amazon has decided they don't want to see your product advertised. That's a thing. But it's really critical to make sure that you figure out what's wrong there, raise the bids, make sure that all of your ads are eligible. Sometimes you may be not eligible for some reason. But if there's no impressions on an auto campaign, then something is literally wrong with the ad. You should never have no impressions on an auto campaign. You may need to bid quite a bit more to be able to compete. There's certain categories that are much less likely for people to go on to 3 and 4 page results. And so then you just won't get any views if you aren't bidding to show up on the first page or two. And the third question was, what if you're below that click-through rate on certain keywords? Again, I'm not worried about the click-through rate as such. It's more about, are you making money on the keywords you are bidding on? Because if you're not making money, then don't bid on it. So we actually do have a training on this. If you have specific questions on that for your ads, then please pop that into the group. But we actually do have a jumpstart on advertising. I kind of walk through the expectations and how I look at advertising on Amazon. And it's not the same way that I look at advertising on Google or Facebook, totally different purposes, totally different objectives. Some of them overlap, but it's not the same thing at all. And then we actually do have a much more in-depth approach for advertising in our masterclass, which actually just started 2 days ago on Monday. So if you still want to join, we can still have you join. It's still only the first week. So anyone who joins this week can still catch up. Okay, next question. An offshore seller has canceled a test order 4 times but Amazon has rejected me 3 times and I report the issue of the cancellations despite being brand registered 2.0. Do you have a template or recommendation for successfully getting Amazon to do something finally? So this is a follow-up from last week where I said to report the cancellations. So in this case, I would actually report this to Jeff because that's not appropriate and someone needs to be looking at it from an escalation standpoint. That's supposed to be what happens. The problem is if you're reporting a violation, often it goes to a seller support team that's been trained to handle initial violations, not to seller performance. Seller-performance@amazon.com is their email. And if they're not getting the message, then they may not actually do anything about it. So you could send the summary of it in a notice to seller-performance@amazon.com. That could get you interesting. I personally think that it would make more sense for you to do a Jeff to complain about this, because the fact that you've got, basically a hijacker and that hijacker isn't cooperating, then that's a problem. So I would just report it directly to Jeff and then that'll get taken through the executive team to the correct group. And of course, at this point, Jeff used to read a lot of the emails and then send question marks. I actually did get a question mark email, I think twice during my time at Amazon. I highly doubt he's actually looking at them right now. He's got a lot going on. Okay, next question. I have been looking at the new voice of the customer in account. This is their not back. One customer, the other is a comment and also in the listing. So the question is, I'm just actually asked you the reason why they made the view at the return report. There are so many times that I have gone into this with clients and I'm like, okay, so let's look at your return report. And they're like, you can look at the return report. Especially when we first start, they just didn't even realize it was a report there that had customer feedback. And so that, from what I can tell, that looks like some sort of attempt by Amazon to correct that problem, that they're trying to make sure that you can see everything that's coming in from the customer. So yes, a return comment is likely. You should be looking at your return comments anyway. From everything that I've seen, there's no enforcement that happens and no activity that happens as a result of that. If there is any enforcement happening or any warnings from Amazon coming as a result of that, I would love to hear about it, because from my understanding, they only enforce right now if there is a consistent issue from the customers over and over again, not if there's like a one-off crazy thing. Okay. Okay, next question. Sorry about that. Next question is, a seller has used their own trademark as brand and manufacturer for an item anyone can buy. I purchased theirs to make sure it's the exact same thing. The only difference is a sticker on the packaging with their name on it. Is it against policy for me to sell this item, or are they in violation for using incorrect brand name? The seller has reported me for trademark infringement. The seller uses their own trademark as brand and manufacturer for an item. I know. Okay. I've been told that a sticker on the product renders the product unique and I can't sell on that listing, and that I can purchase the same OEM product and compete against them, but the items do have a brand name and can be purchased at nearly any store. Is walking into Walmart, buying a product, and putting your logo on it the same thing as private label? Whew, that's okay. That's a messy question. Yes, so if someone puts a whole new label on it, especially if they trademark it and bundle it, then yes, they're taking on the risk for that product, and you shouldn't be selling on their listing. One of the previous questions that someone asked today was about hijackers on the listing, and then this person is asking how to hijack effectively. Those kind of questions are always like, so yeah, if you're trying to buy something from the store and you're trying to list it and you can't find something that exactly matches, like say they have a sticker or say they've got a particular bundled item, then just don't list on it. List on something else. Someone obviously put a lot of effort into their listing, and it's kind of a jerk move to take that over and start benefiting from all their hard work. Okay, Lee says, we have a product that has very few keywords that buyers use. There are a lot of huge companies that also use the same words. Any suggestion on how to spend ad dollars? Yeah, that's a tough one. I call it the compression sock problem. There's not too many words for compression socks. So in that case, the most effective possible approach will actually be product targeting. So Amazon will let you do product and category targeting now. So you can target the top competitors in your space as a product target. So go into ads and create a campaign, create a manual campaign, and instead of keyword targeting, do product targeting, and then target specific products that have converted before in your auto campaigns or similar to those ones that have converted before in your auto campaigns. And then your product will show up if you've got a high bid. It'll show up in that sponsored products carousel below. And hopefully if you've got the high enough bid, it'll show up right at the beginning. So when someone is on that page, the first thing they see is your competitor product right below the picture of their product. That's going to be a lot more effective for you with keyword bids that are really expensive to go with product targeting rather than keyword targeting. The easiest way to see if this is the case is to go to your placement report on an auto campaign and see how much it's costing you to get top of page and how much it's costing you to get product placement. And if it's a lot cheaper for product placement and you get a decent return, then go for that. Use those kind of ads. Okay. All right, next question. Oh, that's so funny, Kathy. You said what impact do you foresee for sellers under Project Zero, and that's literally the next question that Christine had sent me. That's funny. The question is, any opinions on Project Zero? Press release says Amazon is taking a new approach to its longstanding counterfeit problem by allowing brands to remove fake listings from the site. I can't find anything about it on Amazon. What impact will Project Zero have on sellers' metrics when brands arbitrarily delete listings they don't like? So I find this super interesting because brands are already able to do this in a lot of ways through Brand Registry 2.0. And basically on the internal side, they just validate that all of the buttons are correct and the brand owns the trademark before pushing through the removal of those sellers when you report a violation. So it looks like Amazon's just trying to make it self-service instead of having a person review that on the inside. Maybe they've done some sort of notes that show that the reversals are so low that they don't want to bother to have a human look at it. And so then it's just a automation of something that's already happening. I don't think that it's going to be anything worse than what's already happening. Quite honestly, the existing process is pretty draconian. A brand can take someone off. We had a client who got booted off because of Brand Registry 2.0, and they got taken down, and all of it was distribution complaints, which was frustrating, but that's how it was. And it took 6 months to get them back and a lot of effort on our part, but we didn't give up. 6 months, we made it. I personally don't think that there will be much of a difference because you do have to declare under penalty of perjury that what you're saying is true, that it actually is a trademark violation or a patent violation. And I personally, as an agency, as a person, I don't report anything for my clients unless I can see that it's a true problem, that it really is a trademark violation. They created a new listing and used our pictures, or they created a new listing that they should not have. They should have been selling on the existing listing. If it's a distribution issue, so I'm actually working with multiple clients right now to control their distribution. So what we're doing instead is changing the listing to include a sample product that the other sellers cannot possibly get. They don't have access to the sample product. So if someone then sells without the sample product, then they're selling something that is not actually what is being offered on the page, and they can't do that. And then if they create a new duplicate listing that only has the original product, then they're violating the trademark and copyright. So there are ways for brands to do this correctly. And most supporting team members will not declare under penalty of perjury that something is a trademark violation if it's not. So I personally don't think this is a big problem. I think that just like anything else, people will abuse it and then they'll get booted off, just like people got booted off brand registry reports. There were brands that got booted off because of unscrupulous practices by agencies that they hired. Yeah, so there are, so yeah, they know that that's an issue. So they did actually suspend some brands' ability to do it. So Kathy says that they do lie and there's no recourse for the seller. They have actually suspended some agencies, because there were agencies that were out there just like spamming and taking down sellers for no good reason. So for the seller side, the recourse is notice dispute. And for us, that's why I said it took about 6 months for us to get a seller back who is having a problem. You should always dispute. You should always complain, because they keep track of all of those. So always go to notice dispute and complain. They keep track by the numbers. It's all I mean, how many complaints come in, how many, per how many takedowns occurred. That's how they decide if they can automate this stuff, right? If there's very few complaints compared to the overall number of takedowns, then they're going to be like, yeah, we're good to go. The damage will be minimal. So it's absolutely important that if you do get some sort of takedown that's not okay, that you fight back against that, because that's how Amazon decides if it's worthwhile to do so or not. And they do know that these things happen. That's why they have taken down brands' ability to complain before. But I know it's never fun to be the one in the middle. Absolutely not. That's part of the reason why I refuse to do complaints in certain situations. If it's clearly something, we have a client who had previously, they just started working with us in the last half year or so. So they had a lot of distribution agreements prior to that. And they were like, well, why can't we just get them off our listing? Well, because you sold it to them. And I'm not going to call it a trademark violation. If you had a contract and you sold it to them, that's not okay. So a lot of them just don't get how impactful, the brands just don't get how impactful it is to the sellers. Like, it's impacting me. Okay, but do you really want to push that ball forward? Because I'm not going to help you push it forward. So a lot of them just don't have any clue how painful it is for the sellers to do that. Now, on the seller side, we keep having a lot of sellers violate MAP, and they just are like, well, other people violated MAP, so I did too. If there were only one person who violated MAP, well, then maybe I would consider reporting them, because it's a jerk move. But the fact is, every other seller follows them too. And so it's kind of like, all right, guys. It was funny the first time. Now it's not funny anymore. So that whole process can be really, really frustrating. And I understand why Amazon's trying to protect brands better. All right, last question I have here is, there are reports of Amazon requiring a driver's license or passport for new U.S. seller accounts. If true, is this something you would think is a good change or bad change? They are requiring that. Actually, I actually just set up a client account last week with a new client, and he was required to put in his passport. I think it's great. There were so many, it was so easy to create a seller account before. Literally, maybe 7 minutes tops was as long as it took. This one, it took about 45, and they had to verify everything afterwards. I think it's fantastic. The reason why is because there were so many Chinese accounts that were being set up under fake information. They would just find information in the US and just fake it and make fake accounts just out the wazoo, and Amazon wasn't finding them. And so what would happen is, you'd report a hijacker, they'd finally get booted off, and you know how hard it is to get a hijacker booted off. They would get their account shut down, and within a few hours, maybe at most a day, they'd be back under a whole different name, clearly the same people, selling the same crappy product and listing on your product. Not okay. The whole thing was not okay. And so Amazon had to close that loop where people were abusing the whole system. So I think it's fantastic because, one passport, one person. Now, still in China, there are a lot of people that you can pay to use their passport number, but it's a lot harder than it used to be. So I'm a big fan of that. Okay. All right. So that's everything for this morning. We do have a new challenge coming up. We have a storefront challenge. And if you've joined any of our challenges before, there's a ton of content and a lot of actionable step-by-step advice. So I want to have you guys, let me know if you're interested. There's this Gendy link right here where we can have you join already, and then we'll know, how many folks are here. If you want to submit your questions beforehand, if you'd like to say, I have these metrics on my storefront page, can you talk about this? I'm happy to tailor some of the content to what you guys actually need. So if you want to join and say, hey, I've got these questions about storefronts, they will absolutely be answered. We'll go into it in detail. With storefronts, I am super excited about storefronts for a couple of reasons. The first one is that you can get a lot of traffic off of Amazon onto your storefront. I have a client where we just found that I think over 90% of their storefront traffic is actually coming from Google. So that's pretty awesome because they're not paying for it. It's all just coming in. And then the other thing that's really cool is that you can have very specific landing pages on the storefront that you don't have on Amazon. The other thing that we've also seen that's been really helpful is we've had some problems with buy box suppression with certain clients, or with things just not quite going the way that they expect. And sponsored brands ads that go directly to the storefront always have your product available if it's available. You just go straight to add to cart. There is one that says like see all buying options, but it's literally just like one button and then you can buy it. And so it's much easier than on the detail page where they have like see all buying options and you've got to select from the list. It just looks different. And so we found that even when we have a problem with our listing, we had a problem where something was suppressed, the sponsored brand ads actually ended up keeping the account selling for that whole day while there was a problem with the listing. So storefronts can be a hugely important tool just for sales benefit, not to mention the whole like look and feel of your brand, all the branding about it. It's your brand on Amazon. You should make it look good. So I'm super excited to give this this storefront challenge. I love storefronts. I think they're great. I think the only thing that would make them better is if they had portrait-shaped boxes. Right now they just have rectangles, landscape rectangles and squares. So like that part's like, no, why can't I have a portrait? I want portraits. So that's the only thing I don't like. But otherwise, the last thing you can do is you can have more than one video. So on the actual page for enhanced brand content, you can only add one video to your list. On the storefront, you can actually make a whole landing page with multiple videos. We have one client who has only one product, and this works with one product or many products. Actually, it works really well for both, because with the one product, we actually have a different landing page per type of customer. So there's people who like different things, right? One type of customer likes saving money. One type of customer is very eco-friendly. And so we actually have different content and different videos about the same exact product, so that different traffic is going to each, and we can grab different types of customer. Every customer has values, right? So you can grab different customers by having different landing pages with different content in it. So there's some really exciting stuff that we'll go over, and ways for you to be able to use storefronts to sell more stuff. Just what we're here for. All right, thanks everybody, and I will see you next Wednesday.